All right, so let's look into some of the specific games that you want to talk about. And by the way, I'm very impressed with how much you're relaxing. You sound a lot more at ease than you have in the past 2 weeks. So good job, keep it up. You're definitely relaxing very well. So let's look at Villanova-Syracuse. This is one you wanted to talk about. Villanova, they're 9-5-1 against the spread. They've now covered 6 in a row. 6 in a row they've covered, and they haven't been like super convincing covers. A few of them were by a small amount. The last game was only by a half point, but still 6 covers in a row. Syracuse is a top team, but they've been a slightly bad bet, and they've been trending under 3-7 at home. And both these teams are coming off losses. Villanova, their second loss this season. Syracuse, the first loss. So what do you see this line as? What do you think it should be, and where will you be leaning towards if it's off?
I have Syracuse at around -6, and yeah, like you said, Villanova has, especially the last 2 games, they really had no business covering, in my opinion. Even though I did have Villanova last Saturday, they made a great run to end up covering that game. But I would make it 6. If I could get maybe 4 or 5, I would definitely take Syracuse. At 7 or 8, I still wouldn't probably take Nova. I would lean towards Syracuse at 4 and 5.
So your lean is to Syracuse if you can get a good number. All right, cool. And then Ohio State and Illinois. Now, this is an interesting team. Ohio State, of course, they're one of those undefeated teams, 500 against the spread. They're undefeated, and they're 8-8 ATS. And then they started the new year with 4 straight ATS losses. Those losses weren't even really close. They seemed pretty clearly overvalued at that point. They did get a cover in their last game as a big home favorite. But now they're on the road. Illinois 7-3 against the spread at home. I'm assuming that Ohio State will be a road favorite, and I'm wondering if they might be a bad one, if that's what you're going to say. How much of a favorite do you think they should be?
I have them at around -1.5, and yeah, they have not looked impressive the last few games. Haven't impressed, but I'm still sold on them being a solid team. So I did make them around -2, which I think is plenty. The games I've seen Illinois play, they've shot really well. So if I could catch this line at a pick, or maybe even Illinois' favorite, I'd take Ohio State. It's another game that I don't really have any leans on. Just, if the line's off compared to Ohio State -1.5, I'll just play it either way.
Right. Let's look at Kansas State and Texas A&M. Now, this is a very interesting line of game. Of course, we talked about Texas A&M last week as an undervalued team, likely, but they then didn't cover that day, and they also didn't cover their next game against Texas. Now they're still 6-3-1 against the spread. So are they slowing down, perhaps? Do you think they're still undervalued? And maybe those 2 losses, especially the big loss against Texas, sets them up to get a big win and cover at home. They're playing Kansas State, who has not been good against the spread. They're 4-9, and they're 1-7 against the spread over their last 8. They're absolutely tanking. So where do you think this line should be? And might Texas A&M get like a big win here, especially in light of their last loss?
I think they're set up in a good spot here.
Right.
Kansas State hasn't looked impressive, and to me, I believe from what I've saw that team has just quit on Frank Martin. Just judging from the way the players reacted to him in huddles and some of the just kind of random stuff that you've seen, and I actually made this line Texas A&M -7.5, -8. I would probably play it up till. I would probably play it at that line just because I think that they've just completely given up on the year.
Right.
And Texas A&M, that game went to overtime against Missouri, but they were ahead a good portion of that game. And the game at Texas, it was Texas has been really impressive against the spread, and I would probably play it up to 9.
Up to 9, right? Okay, yeah. That does look like a good spot for Texas A&M to get a cover, and they might be a big favorite here, but not nearly big enough, and just wipe the floor with Kansas State. That's a game I might be looking to play pretty seriously. We'll see where it comes out. Then, you talked about Texas. Texas is the team that beat Texas A&M last game, and yes, they're 10-3 against the spread on the year. They're 6-1 in their last 7, including that game over Texas A&M. Those have been against good teams, but they're probably going to be a dog here at Kansas, right? I mean, Kansas undefeated, but like Ohio State, they're only 8-8 against the spread. What do you think about this game, and do you think that Texas getting a bunch of points might be a good bet?
Yeah, I believe it can be. I have this line at Kansas -10, I believe, and it's hard not to like Kansas. They've really only had a couple slip-ups, to be honest, and those were on the road. Actually, 2 on the road. But Texas has been impressive in pretty much every game. If the line's at 10, like I believe, I would lean towards Texas, and I would really want probably 11 or 12 or so because Kansas is really they're more talented than Texas, and at home Kansas is really tough to play against. But I think getting probably 11 or so, I would take Texas.
Where do you think the line will come out?
I have it just square on 10. I could see it coming out a little less than that, given Texas's performance against the spread. But just power ratings wise, I have it at 10.
All right, and then finally, Michigan State and Purdue. This is sort of a game where it's sort of a classic matchup. One team that's shading to being a bad bet, which is Michigan State. They're 6-10 against the spread. Purdue is the opposite. They're 10-6 against the spread, 5-2 at home. They did almost lose their last game at home against Penn State, where they were a 13-point favorite. But Michigan State, they've got 4 straight ATS losses, and they're just not covering that well in general, and they haven't been a good bet. Purdue will be a favorite, and what would be a good line to take Purdue at? Is that the side you're leaning towards?
I've got Purdue at around -8, and really, if I could get Michigan State with that many points, usually I would definitely lean towards them because they're well coached. But Purdue is probably just as equally well coached in my opinion. So it's just a complete toss up at -8. I would be looking at one side, just depending on where the line comes out. But if you could catch double digits with Michigan State, you have to take that, in my opinion. There's no way that they're as bad as what they've played like so far.
Okay.
They usually turn on this time of year.
Okay, well, that's the T. Powell College Basketball Show on SBR. Thanks once again.